J'ouvre maintenant la séance. Bien.
Session is now open. Welcome to meeting number 57.
Adopted on Monday, October 3rd, 2022, the committee is resuming its study on the experience of women veterans. La réunion d'aujourd'hui.
Today's meeting is happening in hybrid format. Thanks to the motion adopted in the House on June 23rd, 2022, there are MPs who are participating in person. With regards to interpretation, those who are participating via Zoom can choose the floor, English or French, at the bottom of your screen. All observations and comments must be directed to the chair. With regards to our connection tests, our witnesses have done the required tests, and I would like to make a warning with regards to, or a trigger warning with regards to trauma. We will be discussing issues related to mental health. Those might trigger people in the room as well as those listening in who may have experienced similar things. If you feel overwhelmed, please let the clerk know.
I would like to provide to you this trigger warning. We may be discussing experiences related to general health and mental health. This may triggering to viewers, members, or staff with similar experience. So do not hesitate to advise the clerk. Alors, avant d'accueillir nos témoins,
before welcoming our witnesses for today, I would like to inform the members that for the first panel, since there was a vote, I would like to hear members on the vote. For the first panel, we have Mr. Godfrey Jerry from Manulife Financial, who must leave at 5 p.m. For the second panel, Mr. Harris, who is here in person, will have to leave at 6 p.m. at the latest. I know that some members, such as Mr. Desilets, who wish to leave at 5:45. Here is my recommendation to committee members. Let us invite all of the witnesses to join in on the panel at once so that when Mr. Godfrey must leave, there shouldn't be any issues and we can start by asking him our first questions and then move on to Mr. Harris. I'd like to know what members of the committee think first. What do you think?
Monsieur Desilets?
Aucun problème pour votre formule.
I have absolutely no issue with that, but it is a shame. I don't wish to leave at 5. I must leave at 5 p.m. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? So I will invite witnesses from the second panel, in particular Mr. Harris, to join us, including those who are online. Please, Mr. Harris, step forward.
Voilà, donc Monsieur Harris prend place. Donc, nous allons faire tous les témoins en même temps.
So all witnesses will be on the panel at the same time, and they will have 3 5-minute introductions from all witnesses.
Officially, our witnesses. But first of all, I have to say that the Canadian Forces Moral and Welfare Services and the Manulife, they were invited on the 29th of May, and we canceled that meeting. So I have to thank them for being here today to participate in that session. D'abord, the Canadian Force.
First, from Canadian Forces Morale and Welfare Services.
Financial by video conference. From Manulife, Mr. Godfrey Jerry, Assistant Vice President, Life and Disability Operations by video conference also. And Mrs. Maureen McGrath, Manager, Canadian Armed Forces Long-Term Disability Vocational Rehabilitation Program. And du ministère des Anciens Combattants, nous avons ici avec nous.
From the Department of Veterans Affairs, we have Stephen Harris, who is the Assistant Deputy Minister, Service Delivery Branch. We also have Trudy McKinnon, Acting Director General, Centralized Operations Division. She is appearing by video conference. And Ms. Melanie McDonald, Team Lead, Disability Benefits, Entitlement, Eligibility Guidelines, and Modernization Initiative.
Commençons donc.
Let us begin with the opening remarks. I would like to invite Mr. Jerry Godfrey, Assistant Vice President of Manulife, because he must leave earlier so he can begin with his 5-minute opening remarks. And I will let you know when your time is running out. Mr. Godfrey, the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, all members of the committee. My name is Godfrey Jerry, and I'm the Assistant Vice President of Group Disability Operations at Manulife. I'm responsible for the delivery of the Canadian Armed Forces Long-Term Disability Plan, where Manulife is the life insurer and the administrator for long-term disability benefits, along with the vocational rehabilitation program. I'm located in beautiful Halifax, Nova Scotia, and oversee 230 employees nationally, with the bulk of our employees in Nova Scotia that support the CAF long-term disability plan. I've been with Manulife for over 21 years. I would also like to thank you for the invitation to appear before the committee today, and I apologize that I have to leave early, but I have some parental duties that I must attend to. Joining me today is my colleague, Maureen McGrath. Maureen is the National Manager of the Canadian Armed Forces Long-Term Disability Vocational Rehabilitation Program, and Maureen has been involved in the program for the past 34 years. I just want to share with you that 53% of all Manulife employees who support the Canadian Armed Forces Long-Term Disability Program and Vocational Rehabilitation Plan are bilingual. 40% of our vocational rehabilitation counselors are veterans themselves, and 54% of our counselors are women. Manulife is Canada's largest life insurance company, and we have over 26,000 Canadian businesses and organizations entrust their group insurance needs with us. We appreciate the trust and partnership we have with the Canadian Morale and Welfare Services, the Department of National Defence, and the Canadian Armed Forces when it comes to this plan. The CAF LTD plan is a key component of the Canadian Armed Forces suite of group benefits. It provides ill and injured veterans with income and vocational rehabilitation support after their release. It provides up to 75% of a member's salary at the release from the Canadian Armed Forces for both service-related and non-service-related illnesses and injuries. It is a disability insurance program that provides financial benefits, including vocational rehabilitation, to medically releasing members and to members who take a voluntary release and who qualify as totally disabled. Manulife takes great pride in serving those who have served our country. We work closely and coordinate with the CAF to ensure a smooth transition for ill and injured members. Over the past 5 years, 84.6% of plan members were pre-approved for long-term disability benefits and referred to a vocational rehabilitation program prior to their medical release from the CAF. 95.5% of plan members received their long-term disability benefits within 5 days of the receipt of the final claim requirements, and each month, over 12,000 veterans receive a benefit payment from Manulife under this program. This also includes 2,000 new claims that we receive each year for benefits and vocational assistance. 1 out of 5 of those claims are for a woman. 97.5% of veterans are contacted by our in-house vocational rehabilitation counselor at Manulife within 5 business days of a referral. Manulife works very closely with CISA Financial, the Director General Compensation Benefits with the Department of National Defense, and the CAF Transition Group to ensure open communication and collaboration. Our employees take great pride in our service delivery, and I can confirm that there are no backlogs, no service issues when it comes to the Canadian Armed Forces long-term disability program, as well as the vocational rehabilitation program. We understand today's focus is on the experience of women veterans. Women veterans who are in receipt of Canadian Armed Forces long-term disability benefits do not have the option to return to work with their former employer. After their release, they'll be preparing to make a transition to employment as a civilian in an entirely new work environment with new colleagues. Their transition will require them to successfully adapt to a new workplace culture while navigating the potential complexity and impact of their illness and injury. As part of this transition, like all veterans, women veterans leaving the forces to experience a mix of emotions. For many, if not most members, being in the Canadian Armed Forces is central to the way they have lived for many years. It is unlike other professions and careers. They have to leave their place of work, in many cases leave the supports and structure being in the forces provides, and they're leaving their friends and colleagues. Depending on their rank, trade, and injury, their transferable skills may or may not easily carry over to civilian employment. There may be an upgrading of skills required, securing civilian certifications, and in some cases, training towards an entirely new field to acquire new skill sets, which will allow them to be competitive in the work marketplace. Helping women veterans transition to civilian careers is one of the many ways in which Manulife provides support. Through the CAF LTD Vocational Rehabilitation Program, women veterans have early access to education funding to help develop skills which will make them competitive in the marketplace. The voluntary program is available to all members who have been approved for LTD benefits through the LTD benefit. It does not distinguish whether the illness or injury is service-related or causing a barrier to reestablishment. Members may begin active participation in the Canadian Armed Forces Long-Term Disability Vocational Rehabilitation Program in the 6 months prior to their medical release, and they have access to funds for tuition, books, allowances to travel to school, school supplies, and other program-required equipment and dependent care. Through our plan and program, our dedicated case management team and vocational rehabilitation specialists provide support to releasing veterans to help them guide through their transition needs. More broadly, Manulife supports the Canadian Armed Forces Soldier On program, contributing to the recovery of ill and injured women soldiers and veterans through grants towards improving health outcomes. In 2022, we contributed to over 130 Soldier On grants. And in the past 4 years, we've contributed we've helped with 500 grants that have given to those women soldier veterans. Thank you for your invitation to speak with us, for us to speak with you today. Maureen and I appreciate the opportunity to support the work of your committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jerry. And now I'd like to invite from Canadian Forces Moral and Welfare Services, Mr. Phil Marcus, for 5 minutes, please.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Phil Marcus. I am Vice President of Operations, Policy, and Product Management at CISA Financial. We are a division of the Canadian Forces Morale and Welfare Services. Our organization directly supports the Canadian Armed Forces operational readiness by contributing to the strengthening of mental, social, familial, physical, and financial well-being of CAF members, veterans, and their respective families. More specifically, CISA Financial provides tailored advice and product solutions that enhance the financial health and security of members of the CAF community and their families. Canadian Armed Forces community members have trusted CISA Financial for expert advice and solutions across pensions, investing, life insurance and disability insurance, budgeting, and borrowing for over 50 years now. CISA Financial is the administrator of both group life insurance and the long-term disability plan for the Canadian Armed Forces, and these are part of their employee group benefits. Manulife is the underwriter of Group Life and the insurer for the long-term disability plan. All Canadian Armed Forces members are automatically enrolled in the Canadian Long-Term Disability Insurance Plan and are eligible for benefits starting from their first day of service. Personnel who leave the Canadian Armed Forces because of medical limitations receive income support for up to 24 months or to age 65 if they're unable to return to work. In addition, all those who are eligible for long-term disability benefits are also eligible for the vocational rehabilitation program managed by Manulife. Understanding the committee is undertaking a comprehensive study on women veterans and the support they are provided, we will do our best to assist. CISA Financial and the Canadian Forces Morale and Welfare Services operate on the principle of one veteran, one standard. As such, we treat all members and their family equally when it comes to the support and services we provide. I'm happy to be here today with our partner Manulife and hope to answer any questions that you may have. Merci.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marcus. Et maintenant, j'aimerais inviter le...
I would now like to invite the Vice President of Operations, or rather the Assistant Deputy Minister of the Department of Veterans Affairs,
for inviting us to appear before you today. It is our pleasure to be here to speak about the Department's disability adjudication process and our ongoing work to modernize our disability benefits tools. Joining me are Judy McKinnon, Director General of Centralized Operations Division, and Melanie McDonald, Team Lead in Disability Benefits. Before we start, I would like to provide an update on the status of the processing times of disability benefit claims. I am pleased to share that we are currently under 6,000 files beyond the 16-week service standard. This is a significant 70% reduction from March of 2020, when the number of files beyond the service standard was over 22,000. While we recognize the reduction and the efforts of our staff to reduce wait times for veterans, we acknowledge that there is still progress to be made. We make progress on these turnaround times by adjudicating claims as efficiently as possible. There are two steps in the decision-making process. In the first step, the adjudicator determines entitlement, which is whether the disability is related to service. In the second step, the adjudicator makes an assessment of the severity of the disability and its effect on the applicant's quality of life. Anciens combattants disposent de nombreux outils décisionnels.
We have many various mechanisms in place, but there are two steps in the decision-making process. For example, the right to pensions.
Les lignes directrices sur l'admissibilité au droit à pension sont des énoncés de politique qui assurent
While
sur le lien entre une invalidité et le service militaire.
the guidelines are based on evidence from peer-reviewed medical research and literature, both in Canada and abroad. The Table of Disabilities is a legislated instrument used to assess the extent of a disability. The tool helps the adjudicator establish an assessment based on a medical impairment rating in conjunction with quality of life indicators. This is an assessment of the impact of the impairment of the individual's lifestyle. While the guidelines and table have seen various additions and ad hoc updates since 2005 and 2006, we recognize the need for continuous updates that keep pace with medical research and which reflect sex and gender-based analysis plus lens. As a result, we are currently in the midst of a multi-year plan to modernize both tools.
The modernizations are informed by sex and gender research. We have developed a tailored GBA Plus methodology to guide our work. We use documents from Women and Gender Equity Canada, the Veterans Affairs GBA Plus strategy, the GBA Plus policy, step-by-step guides with the consultation of the Office of Women and LGBTQ Plus Veterans. The application of our GBA Plus approach will ensure that our clients see themselves reflected in our tools, because we have considered the varied and diverse health experiences of Canadian military and policing communities. In addition to modernizing our decision-making processes, we are reducing processing time inequities for Francophone and female applicants by modifying our approach to staffing. For example, since 2020, we've hired more bilingual and francophone disability adjudicators to increase our capacity to process French applications. As of September 2022, roughly 30% of our decision-making staff are francophone or bilingual. In September of 2021, we added a team dedicated to processing applications from female applicants. This approach is working because the gap in processing time between male and female applications has been nearly eliminated, falling from 7 weeks in 2019-20 to 1 week as of the end of March 2023. We've also cut the gap between French and English applications in half over this same period. Further to these efforts, we aim to simplify and create additional efficiencies in decisions, ensure the veteran is at the forefront, use up-to-date health literature and best practices to support evidence-based decision-making, and support equitable, transparent, and consistent disability benefit decisions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harris. And I'd like to remind members that Mr. Godfrey has to leave at 5 o'clock. So now let's start questioning our witnesses. And I invite the first Vice President of the committee, Mr. Blake Richards, for 6 minutes, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, it's unfortunate that we had to amalgamate. There's lots of questions here, but we'll do what we can with what we do have for time. I'll start with Veterans Affairs, Mr. Harris, or whoever you'd like to have answer. Got a few questions. First one is there was a recent on May 25th there was a Facebook post by Veterans Affairs Canada about the public service healthcare plan coverage and with the changeover to Canada Life. And it indicates that if a veteran has not completed an enrollment package to move over to Canada Life by June the 15th, their coverage could be cancelled. And that if they haven't done so, they would then have to reapply, and they'd have to wait 3 months before their coverage could be reinstated. I wonder if you could give us some sense of why that is, and if you have any sense of how many veterans this may be impacting in terms of lost coverage.
Sure, thanks for that question. There's about 4,000 veterans who are able to access the public service health care plan at this point in time. The transition is one that's going across all of the public service health care plans, so the plan actually covers all public servants and is extended to veterans in many cases. We are working directly with the contract holder and Treasury Board Secretariat, who's leading the transition from the current contract holder to the new one of Canada Life. We're targeting veterans specifically to make sure that they actually get their transition packages in. So at this point, about 2,000 have gotten their application packages in. We're calling them directly to follow up with them to make sure they have the information that they need to be able to submit the package that's required, and we're following up with them on a regular basis.
So at this point, though, we're talking about half, 2,000 of the 4,000 that are eligible have not yet submitted, and we're obviously getting quite close to that June 15th deadline. So I really hope that your outreach efforts will step up to whatever degree they're needed. And I also would ask if you could provide this committee the numbers maybe on the 16th of June, kind of where we ended up, how many veterans did in fact lose coverage. That would sure be appreciated. Would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, thank you very much. I wanted to just turn to the departmental plans for 23-24. Under the section Benefits, Services, and Support, there's 17 goals that are listed there that the department has set for itself. Are you able to tell me how many of those goals have a due date and a target number attached to them?
Mr. Chair, unfortunately, I don't have that information in front of me. I suspect that I could come back to the committee with a readout of the plan targets and priority setting for it.
Okay. So I do have them here, and only 6 of those 17 goals actually have set a due date or a target number associated to them. The rest simply say to be determined. And, that includes goals, and I'll give a few examples, such as the percentage of veterans who report their health is very good or excellent, percentage of veterans who report their mental health is very good or excellent, percentage of veterans whose household income is below the low-income measure, percentage of veterans who are employed, and there's obviously a number of others. But it just seems to me, I'll just call it odd, that there would be no goal. Like if it's a goal, we should be able to measure what is the target we're shooting for. We should be able to determine what date, by which date we're hoping to achieve that goal. And to me, to have a plan that has 11 of the 17 goals, not have a target actually set to it, not have a due date set to it, doesn't really sound like goals at all. And I wondered if you could speak to that at all. It just seems really odd to me that we wouldn't, if something is a priority, we should be able to measure it and we should be able to determine when we want to reach the goal by.
Mr. Chair, again, I'd be happy to follow up with respect to the question being asked by the member. We do have targets and goals. They are established as part of departmental plans and performance metrics that are in place. We do obviously hope to ensure that we can increase and ensure the well-being of veterans across all of those metrics. And so happy to come back to the committee with what those metrics look like. But we do establish them, and then we do actually monitor them through stat scan surveys, through other things, to make sure that we can see how the veteran population is doing as a whole, how our veteran population is doing, because they may be different in some cases.
But you can come back to us, you said, with more detail, because to be determined to me isn't a lot of detail, obviously. And so if you could, in fact, provide us in writing with what the metrics are, what the due dates would be for those things, that would sure be appreciated. If I can also, in that same plan, I know in the past at committee, you had indicated to us that you do, I'd asked some questions about hiring of veterans, and you'd indicated you do prioritize that and you believe in hiring veterans. And I know that that's the case, that you do really believe in that. But I noted in that document, it's a 53-page document, the departmental plan, there was no mention that I could find at all of any efforts to try to recruit more veterans to work at Veterans Affairs Canada. Can you tell me why that is? And if VAC is actually interested in having more veterans, shouldn't it be a part of your plan? Shouldn't there be a target set for how many veterans you're looking to hire in the coming year?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to reassure the committee that the department is fully invested in making sure that we can hire as many veterans as possible and bring them in. It is part of our standard practice. We use it as screening assets and tools as part of our employment processes, our selection processes. That continues.
Why not have a target in your departmental plan? If it's actually a priority, one would think there'd be a target or there'd be some kind of a goal that you would set for yourselves. Why is that? Like, why not?
Once again, there's no limit necessarily set on how many veterans we would hire. We hire them as part of our processes, and as I said, we prioritize the access of bringing them in.
Limit, but what we're asking you to set is a target to try to achieve, right? And I guess I'll just leave you with this. I certainly hope that in next year's plan, we'll see a target set for hiring veterans.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. And now let's go to Mr. Sean Kissy for 6 minutes, please. Mr. Kissy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Harris, you weren't afforded an opportunity to answer that last question because of the incessant interruptions. So I would ask you to take as much time as you need to outline the department's efforts to increase the number of veterans that you hire, and I won't interrupt you.
Thanks very much. And while the overall efforts of the department fall outside my particular area of responsibility, what I would say is that the department undertakes serious efforts to recruit, retain, provide developmental opportunities for veterans as part of our ongoing activities. We do report, or we do collect information on the number of veterans in the department by virtue of how many self-report. We cannot force anybody to report. And so while we collect information around individuals' self-reporting, that can't necessarily be viewed as the full picture of veteran hiring in our department. We have veterans at all levels of the organization, from the very top through all of the various ranges of it, and they contribute a lot in terms of our understanding and our comprehension of military needs, culture, the needs of veterans, and the way in which we need to help support them going forward. So it's an ongoing effort from our point of view to make sure that we can continue to support their post-military employment needs. And I would also add, the department, as part of one of the minister's mandate commitments, is working on an overall veterans employment strategy that will be expected to come in the next while, that will outline the importance of not only of veteran hiring in the public or the private sector, but also across all aspects of the public sector and the public service of Canada.
Thank you. I want to focus in now on some of the testimony that we heard in the opening statements, and the fact that there is different criteria to determine whether someone's disability is related to military service as between Veterans Affairs Canada and CISIP. And I don't know whether you're going to toss this to someone in your team, Mr. Harris, but I'd like you to explain for me what the differences are and what degree of difficulty is caused by the fact that there are two different standards.
Well, I might ask the Director General, Judy McKinnon, to answer in a little bit more detail. What I'd just start by saying quickly is we have our own responsibilities with respect to the determination of service-related injury, what that means, and what that actually entitles as part of the legislation that exists for Veterans Affairs Canada. We follow that. I would have to let our colleagues at CISIP explain what their core approach is. But I might ask just Trudy to offer a couple of words on that.
Ms. McKinnon?
Mrs. McKinnon, mic, please open. We didn't hear you. No. Try again, please.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, please, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So thank you very much for the question. As Mr. Harris noted, there are two steps in our decision-making process. And so the first step is to determine entitlement. And so we look at whether or not the condition, the medical condition that the member is coming forward with is related to service. And so are we able to connect that to their Canadian Armed Forces or RCMP service? Once we've made that service connection, the next step in our process is to establish and to assess the level of disability. And so we have various tools that we use in order to determine the level of disability that the member has come forward with. And so once those two steps in the process are completed, we're able to render our decision and process the member's claim for disability benefits. Thank you.
And does the determination as to whether they've met the CISIP standard have any bearing on your evaluation of eligibility?
It does not, Mr. Casey. We, like I said, have our own separate and distinct process from CISIP. And so we follow our two-step process that is unique to Veterans Affairs, and it is not impacted by any process at CISIP.
So if I could go to the CISIP folks, you just heard the Veterans Affairs answer. I'd be interested in hearing from you as to the differences between the criteria that you apply and whether the fact that there is different criteria causes any problems for your claimants.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a very simple answer. Under the CISIP policy, that is the life and disability benefits contract with Manulife for Canadian Armed Forces employees, the definition of service attributable or non-service attributable is there purely and solely for statistics that Treasury Board asked us to keep. It does not affect case adjudication. It does not affect benefits. It does not affect anything. As I said in my opening statement, we treat everyone equally, one veteran, one standard. So if you are medically released, whether it's service attributable or not, matters not.
These statistics that you collect for Treasury Board, do you retain or analyze them? Are they of any value to your particular the business or the service that you provide?
They were asked of us by Treasury Board in order to calculate the percentage of members and the premiums paid for service attributable versus non-service attributable medical releases. It's a figure that we still collect. but we're not sure what Treasury Board is doing with them exactly. And roughly speaking, we have about a 70-30 split. So that means 70% of LTD claimants are service attributable and 30% are non-service attributable.
Thank you.
Mr. Marcus, and maintenant, j'aimerais inviter.
Now I would like to invite the second vice president or co-chair of the committee, Luc Desilets, to ask us questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for being present. My first question is for you, Ms. McGrath. If we look at what the Ombudsman said, the liberation or the release for medical reasons is higher among women than among men. And you're saying that there are 2,000 new requests per month of military personnel who are to be released because for medical reasons. Is that correct? Yes, that is correct. Ah, I see you speak French. So, with women make up 16.3% of military personnel. You are sure of these numbers? There's a higher proportion of women with regards to the personnel? Thank you for the question. When we look at our data, on average, about 20% or 20 to 22% of the new files we receive annually are for women. About 78% would be men. The 80 to 78% that's remaining is men's files. So 20 to 22% are for military women. So more than 1 in 5. Over the last 3 years, how many people from the military were released due to medical reasons? Mr. Chair, I would not be able to tell you how many people were released due to medical reasons because our program is done on a voluntary basis. We can tell you how many people we receive. We receive about 200 files per year, but it's difficult to say if that actually represents 100% of the people who are on medical release. The only thing we can account for are the military members who applied to our program. So we are the first payers. Indeed, the implementation is ours to do, but we can only give you information based on the people who chose to apply to our program. That doesn't... Are there no further details? Are there no motives? I'm sorry, can you repeat your question, please? Yes, there seems to have been a loss of connection. Do you not have more information? Do you have no information with regards to the motives behind these requests? To know how many medical releases there have been, that is information that we would be able to garner through the transition center, and we can submit them to you. Yes, please. It would be appreciated if you can submit that data to our clerk. Another question for you. How many men and women, maybe it'll be difficult to answer, but how many men and women have been released due to medical reasons that were related to sexual assault trauma? We don't keep those kinds of statistics right now. We don't know how many people were released due to sexual trauma. When you say that that is data that you don't have right now, does that mean that you don't that you obtain them and you leave them aside, or that you don't get them at all? No, when we receive an application, we look at all the reasons why a person might be released. Sometimes it could be a medical reason that is not related to the service. The services that we offer are adapted to the person. There might be more than one reason or more than one injury or medical reason for them to apply. So the application may have been accepted for a reason, but it doesn't mean that there was no medical or sexual trauma, rather. Can you tell us how many applications you've received over the last 3 years? We receive on average 2,000 new applications per year. Per year or per month? It's per year, isn't it? Yes. Mr. Harris, a question for you. The medical data that is collected are transmitted to Veterans Affairs, not without the request made by the veteran. Is it a form that is simply signed? Yes. Is there no possibility for this to be done automatically at some point? Because of PVC, if there's no request and no need to receive it, well, the only way that it can happen is for the veteran to make the request, and then we can get the medical data necessary related to their conditions. And why wouldn't it be done automatically? Someone who is in the armed forces has to absolutely sign this form because they have medical issues that can arise later. It might be difficult for the veteran to go back. Well, a lot of them don't actually need our services or these kinds of services. But they might not need services when they leave the forces during the first years, but some lesions from their service might appear later. And as soon as that may happen, we can go and fetch their application if need be. It seems to create delays for the veteran. Thank you very much.
Merci, Monsieur Désiré.
Thank you, Mr. Desilets. Thank you, Mr. Harris.
MP Heath McDonald on Zoom. And now let's go to Miss Rachel Bliney for 6 minutes, please.
Well, thank you so much, Chair. And I did my best to listen to the discussion about CISIP and the criteria. What would be helpful for me is if we could have both CISIP and VAC share the criteria that they use to determine whether a medical release is related to military service. And if you could divide that between the portions of men and of women. And it sounds like around sexual trauma, there isn't MST. It's not something that CISIP is looking at. So if you could just write that down on something to us and send it to the clerk and back, if you could let us know how many are medically released based on MST, that would be really helpful. So I assume, unless you say no, that you're good to do that. So Mr. Harris, I'm going to come to you first. I understand that there is a service delivery branch that is dedicated for processing disability claims related to MST. So I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how long it's been in existence. Is it a permanent or temporary unit? Are the workers permanent or temporary, or is there a ratio of that? And if the adjudicators are medical professionals would be helpful. And the last part of that question is how many claims are they processing on a monthly basis? Or if you have daily or weekly, we're open to that as well. And are the amount of claims increasing?
Thanks very much for the question. There's a lot to answer in that. I'm going to ask the Director General responsible for that area, Trudy McKinnon to do her best to tackle, I think, 7 questions.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Thanks for the question, MP Blaney. First off, here at Centralized Operations Division, we established a military sexual trauma unit in 2020 in order to deal with the files that were coming forward in regards to sexual trauma, sexual harassment, gender-based discrimination in the Canadian Armed Forces. Since we have established that unit in 2020, we have received approximately 3,580 claims over the past number of years. We have done a lot of work with regards to our policies and procedures to address and deal with these types of claims when they come forward. And so, for example, we have updated our policies to accept the applicant's statement. That means that they do not need to provide corroborating evidence. Very specifically, when we're dealing with cases of sexual misconduct, that often happens in private, and there often are no witnesses to verify or to vouch for the claimant. And so we have accepted their applicant's statement as evidence, and we move forward from there. In addition to that, we give the MST, military sexual trauma claims, high priority, and so they go into their own queue, and they are processed on a priority basis. Oftentimes, it takes years for applicants to come forward and to bring these stories forward to us and to submit their claims, and so we're very sensitive to that. In addition, we have done a lot of training with our disability adjudication staff so that they have what we call informed trauma training, so that they are sensitive to the issues that are being brought forward and that they are able to communicate with our clients in a sensitive and respectful way, because of course these issues are very difficult for people to bring forward.
That sounds great. You've answered about 6 of the 7 questions, so it just shows again women are usually very effective. When men think it's too much, we just get it done. But you didn't answer if it's permanent staff. It sounds like is it now permanent, and is there permanent staff in it?
With regards to the unit itself is permanent. It has been in place since 2020, and it is our intention to keep it in place as these claims continue to come forward. There is a mix of permanent and temporary staff, as is the case in all of our operational areas. And so right now there are what we refer to as our indeterminate permanent staff and term staff that work on these types of claims.
So do you think you could get the percentage to us? So 100% of staff, how many are permanent, how many are temporary? If you could send that to us, that would be great. I appreciate it so much. Okay. Mr. Harris, I'll ask you again, and you can decide who answers. One of the things that I found very interesting is I've had a couple of veterans come to me who had issues happen when they were serving in the CAF, and they had stuff for their disability, for example, a wheelchair. And when they transferred over to VAC, they've been with VAC for a while. If they still have the tools that they need to survive, that they received in CAF, it seems like VAC sometimes has a hard time actually servicing them. So, for example, we had one veteran who had to actually pay for the repairs for her wheelchair because VAC said, well, CAF gave you the wheelchair. I know you've been a veteran now for several years, but we don't cover that. So I'm just wondering if that's a block that you see and what you're doing in your department to fix it.
It's always just very difficult to hear about veterans who may be struggling with either getting equipment or getting access to treatment. Difficult to respond to those specific cases without having some additional detail. I would say in general, we want to make sure 2 things. One, when individuals are transitioning over, leaving the Canadian Armed Forces and the supports that they have there, that we have everything in place for them to support them when they transition to a Veterans Affairs client, for example. We always want to do that. Sometimes people leave the Canadian Armed Forces in between. There was an earlier question about sort of what happens in between when somebody leaves and then maybe doesn't recognize that they have an illness or an injury, and they come back to us, and that's perfectly fine, and we'll help to fix it in that case. So the answer is we should always make sure that people have everything in place when they're transitioning from one department, so from the Canadian Armed Forces over to Veterans Affairs. I won't tell you that there aren't instances, as you've pointed out, where maybe there's something that's amiss. We're working to address all of those in individual cases and as a collective to make sure that all policies and programs and everything else is in place to help support people transition effectively.
So where would that veteran go then? Because it sounds like you're trying to solve the problem and it's something that doesn't happen, hopefully, frequently. Where would they go? Because that was definitely one of the concerns, is we were not getting any guidance of how they would get those supports in place.
They should come back to Veterans Affairs.
30 seconds, please.
Yeah, they should come back to Veterans Affairs, and if there's individuals that can't get connected through the department, to raise it up to somebody who is appearing here, like myself or others, and we'll look into the individual cases.
Thank you, Ms. Blaney. And now we're going to have a last round of questions for a total of 25 minutes. So I'm going to start with Mr. Blake Richards. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. In 1990, when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, an international coalition stepped up, and that included thousands of brave Canadians. And they fought what is known by everyone as the Gulf War, or the Persian Gulf War. And that includes all over the website of Veterans Affairs Canada and many other government websites. It's identified quite correctly as the Gulf War. Yet, the veterans that serve this country in the Persian Gulf, their service is not considered wartime service. And I think when most Canadians hear that, they're shocked. And I wondered if you could, Mr. Harris, if you could provide us some indication as to why that in fact is the case. Why does Veterans Affairs not recognize that service and their important service as wartime service, and whether there are any plans or discussions taking place to consider changing that and affording wartime service status to those brave men and women?
Mr. Chair, I would offer the following. One is we do recognize their brave service. It is recognized both in terms of their access and ability to access Veterans Affairs programs and supports that are in place, and certainly from a commemorative point of view on a quite regular basis. There are different rules and regulations around how wartime service is defined versus other types of service. That one's out of the scope of my lane in terms of being able to answer you here. I would offer the following, however. The department is regularly meeting with representatives of the Gulf War Veterans Association. We have ongoing conversations about the best ways to help and support those individuals, both in terms of any specific medical or program needs that they might need, or in the best way to reflect them from a commemorative point of view as well. So that conversation with those individuals and that association is ongoing.
I certainly appreciate that, and certainly by no means intended to imply that there was not services provided, but certainly the recognition of wartime service is something that I think is incredibly important to many of these men and women who served in the Persian Gulf. And so I guess I understand you're saying it's outside of your area, but could you maybe go back and have a response provided to this committee as to whether there's any consideration being given to extending that wartime service recognition to our Persian Gulf veterans? I'd ask if you would be willing to do that for us.
We can certainly come back to you, Mr. Chair, with the information around how each of the types of service are defined. Actually, quite clearly articulated in our legislation and on our website as well. We can certainly come back with that information and and provide that back to the committee.
Okay, I would appreciate that, and I'll cede the remainder of my time to Mr. Tolmie.
Mr. Tolmie, you have 2 minutes left.
Sometimes when you share that with me, Chair, I think that's how much life I've got left.
No.
Well, let's hope not. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you to all our guests for being here, and thanks for those that have served. I echo the comments made by my colleague, Mr. Richards, regarding the service of our veterans in the Gulf War, and I know that we've been waiting on a monument for them, and this is the first time that women veterans have served in combat and combat role. Mr. Godfrey and Ms. McGrath, thank you for joining us. And so I would like to focus on a question that's been bothering me, and I'm hopefully going to get some clarity from you. According to your website, in order to be eligible for the Canadian Armed Forces long-term disability benefits until you are 65, you must be assessed as totally disabled and be reassessed every year. Can you tell me how many veterans are approved versus denied when they apply as totally disabled, and how many veterans challenge their denial?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Chair. Some of that information I'll have to take away and come back to you in terms of approval and denials. When we take a look at overall benefits that extend beyond 24 months of the plan members that we have on file. We have, if you can just let me find it here, end of CAF LTD benefits at 24 months of the women, 22% of women, 78% of men. Benefits that extend beyond 24 months. Sorry, I'm trying to find it here. So benefits that extend beyond 24 months.
Okay, well...
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to come back with you on that.
Okay, well then I want to quickly ask you this. If a veteran is a double amputee and is determined to be totally disabled, does the veteran still have to undergo a yearly medical review to ensure that he or she is still a double amputee? Because I've had an open session with veterans, and I've been told this, and I find that somewhat crazy, that they would have to prove that they're totally disabled, and then they have to keep proving this. So could you share that and answer with me on that?
I certainly can. Thank you for the question. So the annual medical review may not necessarily require for the member to go to see a doctor, but we would do a client update. So the case manager would reach out to the member. So in that case, what they're really doing is they are evaluating the plan member's ability to possibly participate in a vocational rehabilitation program. Are they interested in returning to employment? Are they interested in seeking assistance to either return to work or pursue retraining? So the review is really to see how the member is doing and what additional supports may be available to them.
Thank you, Mrs. McGrath, and I would like to invite MP Darrell Sanson for 5 minutes, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Miss McGraw or McGrath, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. There are some immigrants in Acadie who wouldn't know how to pronounce it. It's McGrath. It comes from my mother's side, who was an Hubert. So we know that there's a certain percentage of Canadians that are Acadians. Ms. McGrath, your colleague made certain comments, Mr. Godfrey Jerry. He had some data. So 40% are veterans, 50% are women in your industry. What were the actual numbers that he gave at the very beginning? So in the rehabilitation program, 54% of our counselors are women, 45% are veterans, 51% of our staff with the rehabilitation program is bilingual, and that goes up to 53% when you look more globally with the at the level of the entire department. 20% of our executives and directors are veterans, and 80%, or rather 77% of our team of directors are women. I think that it's worth mentioning that we're impressed. I'm impressed that your industry has such high percentages of women, and more so than men. 45% is amazing. Many companies would be able to benefit from your abilities to recruit and retain. 51% being bilingual. My colleague had a big, wide smile on his face. So thank you for all the efforts that you're making. I'm sure that it is very beneficial on the market.
Marcus, I just wanted to touch quickly, if you could share with us in your presentation, you talked about the women veteran. I'd like to know, what are some of the biggest challenges that's facing women veterans in the last 5 to 10 years? Are you noticing an evolution, and to what extent, and what is the greatest challenge?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, but I must clarify that I didn't single out any women veterans or any statistics that we keep on that. The main point that I had made is that everyone is treated equally. Whatever the CAF decides in terms of medical releases is what we administer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to indicate. My point is, what is the greatest challenge that women veterans are faced with in the last 5 to 10 years when making application?
Yes, thank you. We are the administrative arm of the medical release process. So once a determination has been made by the Canadian Armed Forces through the Director of Military Career Administration, through the CAF Transition Group, through all of those steps, we are the last administrative step that takes into consideration the person, their salary at release, because that directly influences their LTD benefits, their pension benefits, if they are eligible for a pension, and so forth. So we are purely an administrative arm of that process. We take all of that information and pass it on to Manulife, who then adjudicates the claim and keeps additional information. So I wouldn't have anything specific to women or men in that process.
Okay, thank you. I probably should have went to Mrs. McGrath, but I'll go to Mr. Harris, maybe just to touch on the important work that Veteran Affairs has been doing with the Office of the Women Veteran, as well as the 2S LGBTQI+, and also the forums that we've had in 2019, 2023. Can you speak about what are some of the evidence that's coming out that's helping through these various sectors of support?
Mr. Chair, with your permission, I'd ask Melanie McDonald to talk about some of the stuff we're doing on gender-based analysis, particularly as it comes to disability adjudication. She can give you some real practical examples of the kinds of things we're changing and working on.
Excuse me, your mic, you have to turn it on. Let's try again. Hello? Hello? Okay, I think it's on now.
Hello, can you hear me there?
Yes, thank
Perfect.
you. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So I'm part of a team who is updating our entitlement eligibility guidelines. So we currently have 45 entitlement eligibility guidelines. These are policy statements that support decision makers to render decisions on the entitlement portion. So that first step of the decision-making process. We also have a team that's working to modernize the table of disabilities. As part of this modernization of these two key tools that support our decision makers, we are applying a GBA plus methodology to that. So what has happened is we're looking at what the medical condition is. We're looking at the causes of that condition. We're looking at whether there's any differences between females, males, and other folks that identify as sex or gender diverse. We're looking at whether there's differences in the military population. We're looking at age. We're looking at a variety of variables that may contribute to a person developing a certain medical condition. One of the things that we're really excited about is the very first new EEG that we have published in about 7 years or so is a new EEG for sexual dysfunction. It's the first EEG or entitlement eligibility guideline that is gender inclusive, sex and gender inclusive, in that we look at the impact on females and we look at the impact of males. We have consideration in the entitlement eligibility guideline for the causes of sexual dysfunction, including military sexual trauma.
Thank you, Mrs. McDonald. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you very much. That's okay.
Time is over. Et Monsieur Desilets.
Mr. Desilets, you have a short 2.5 minutes for your questions. Oh, you are so ungenerous. Ms. McKinnon, some questions for you briefly. You alluded earlier to the fact that sexual trauma are treated prioritarily. What does that mean, priority?
Bonjour, merci pour ta question.
Hello, thank you for your question.
Specifically, what that means is that those files do not sit in our queue. So once that file is received and we have identified all the information that we need, it moves directly to a decision maker and jumps ahead of other files in the queue. Given the trauma and the oftentimes mental health distress that those clients are under, we feel it's important to prioritize those claims. And so when we receive those and we receive all the required information to render a decision, we move those directly to a decision maker. And so they get processed.
Concrètement, une demande vous est déposée.
If a request is made tomorrow morning, when will you meet that person?
We have been processing the claims for military sexual trauma within our service standards. So normally, we process those claims within our 16-week service standard. Now, many of them get processed more quickly than that, depending on what the volume of MST claims are coming into the system and what we're receiving on a monthly basis. But I would be happy to come back to the committee and provide more detailed information with regards to the turnaround time. But the vast majority are processed well within our service standard of 16 weeks.
C'était possible pour vous, effectivement, de nous donner.
It would be great if you can submit that. When I hear priority, it means that we react immediately. So if you're talking about standards of service, that's a little bit concerning. How many people are in your team? Are they permanent staffers or are they on contract?
The teams, each veteran benefit team is made up of approximately 20 to 25 staff members. That includes our intake officers, our benefit program officers who adjudicate less complex claims, and then our disability adjudicators who are all nurses. And so there's between 20 and 25 on any given team, and that's how many would be on the MST team. And they also, as I mentioned earlier, are a mix of both permanent and temporary staff, and I've committed to MP Blaney to come back with the data for that team, and certainly we'll be happy to do that.
Merci.
Thank you very much.
Merci, Monsieur Desilets.
Thank you, Mr. Desilets. I'd like to invite Miss Blaney over Zoom.
Well, thank you, Chair, and I think you're always generous, so I can agree with my friend, Mr. Desilets, on that. But I do have a question about the Veteran Family Wellbeing Fund. I'm just curious if we could get shared with the committee what the criteria is, how many women's groups have been funded since 2018 through this program? And then how many applications are denied every year? And I'm also curious if there's particular criteria focusing specifically on women veterans, focusing on organizations led by women veterans, for women veterans. Those things would be very helpful to me. Is that something that you could provide the committee with, Mr. Harris?
We can certainly provide the committee with that. We have criteria published on the actual website around the Wellbeing Fund itself. And you're quite right, we have prioritized certain groups over the course of the last number of years. I'll let them give you the details specifically, but we have prioritized giving funding to groups that support women, Indigenous organizations, and others as well, homelessness initiatives, for example, over the course of the last number of years, recognizing that these are key areas of priority.
Excellent. And another question that I have is, one of the things that's come up repeatedly in having conversations with women veterans is the area of sexual dysfunction. And there seems to be concern that there isn't enough support for women who are experiencing sexual dysfunction. So I'm just wondering if we could get the numbers of women and men who have claims in for sexual dysfunction, just to give us a sort of an understanding. And I'm also curious if there's any work being done within the department to explore how to make this a little bit more acceptable for women and more inclusive so that women feel that they can come forward. Because I'm hearing that a lot of women are just being told it's not something that is taken care of, it's not something that's considered. So I'm just wondering if any work is being done to educate women and to do outreach to women veterans on this issue. And if I could get the stats as well, that would be helpful.
We can certainly give you some of the stats with respect to that, Mr. Chair. With respect to the work that's underway, Melanie was just speaking of that a little bit earlier around one of the eligibility entitlement guidelines that's been modified on this, and we are continuing to work in that area. Unfortunately, I don't think we have the time to go into much detail about it, but if we're allowed, I would certainly ask Trudy and Melanie to speak a little bit to that.
Thank you, Ms. Binney. I think that you are watching. Okay, time is over, effectively. So, j'aimerais inviter
Mr. Rogers, on to you.
3 minutes, and
3 minutes, please.
Rogenthal, going to have 3 minutes to end that session. Mr. Rogers, please.
I guess given the short time, just a couple quick questions. What are some of the most common misconceptions by veterans, particularly women veterans, about services and benefits that are available to them post-service? And how can we improve the communications to ensure that these veterans know about, I guess, what options are available to them? Or is there anything more we can do to make sure that they know exactly where what's available to them as they transition?
I don't know that I would call anything a misperception. If somebody's feeling a particular way around, the supports that they're getting, it's a valid point. We have clearly in the past had some difficulty in making sure that we could make decisions and make advances equally on issues of importance to men and women veterans, because we saw in large numbers male veterans coming forward to us, and not so much in the case of women veterans. And so it's taken some time for us to do that. Trudy and Melanie are amongst the people in the department. We're working very diligently to make sure that all issues with respect to women veterans are being addressed with importance. We've taken this seriously from a gender-based analysis approach. We've looked to review programs and make sure that there's no discrepancy and there's no difficulty in terms of the eligibility for a woman veteran who might be coming forward. What I would just say is, please do come forward. Come and see us. Come and talk to us. Even if you feel as though for some reason a friend, a colleague has not been able to get the support that they were looking for, please do come forward to us. We are continuing to improve our processes. We want them to come forward and get the help that they may need and that we can offer. So we want people to come forward. So the biggest ask, I'd say, and what we continue to do, is certainly try and encourage people to come forward and make that process as easy as possible.
Thank you. Misconceptions or misunderstanding in a lot of cases, I guess we've heard some witnesses in the past make certain statements about not knowing exactly what was available to them. And the other part of that question is, do they understand what's available to maybe their spouses and the rest of their family members?
So as part of any transition process, we do transition interviews with the serving member, male, female, woman, man, and often we invite their families to come and join, their spouses in particular to come and join, so that they can be aware of not only the benefits that are available for the veteran, but that there may be benefits that are available for the families in terms of supports as they help to ensure that the veteran is doing well, that the veteran's well-being is in a good position. And we work with the Canadian Armed Forces on a whole range of services that are in place to help support the families as well, through places like the Military Family Resource Centers.
Good to hear, Mr. Harris. Thank you very much for that. Mr. Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. And now I invite Mrs. Rogenthal for 3 minutes, please.
Thank you so much, Chair. I'd like to go back to the discussion around the unit for military sexual trauma, where you indicated that you accept applicants' statements as their evidence because of the dynamics often of that circumstance. We had a witness, Joanne Savoie, Major, retired, and I just want to read some of her testimony to you. Please listen closely and explain to me why there's this discrepancy. I've been a client of Veterans Affairs for 11 years after an Afghan injury. She goes on to talk about her physical help from VAC took time, but she's well serviced now. But with regard to the class action, I really want to say something here that's important, that was my experience, and I fear is the experience of many more women. When the class action was established, Veterans Affairs policy regarding sexual trauma and the impact on women's health and women's lives as a result of multiple traumas, not just single incident injuries, was not identified in the Veterans Care policy. I've been writing the Ombudsman on this issue. When I was diagnosed, basically with military sexual trauma, and I spent 6 months being diagnosed with female sexual interest disorder, which is a new DSM diagnosis, and persistent depressiveness. Veterans Affairs ignored one of them. I spoke to 4 different people who said, well, we didn't deny it, we just ignored it. You know, that's kind of insulting to me as a Canadian and as a client for them to ignore it. I asked them to put it in writing, but they wouldn't. The desk officer laughed, and I said, everything in my dealings with veterans I have to put in writing, but you're not affording me the same. As I suspected, I've been in government and in the military a long time. I suspected their policies weren't updated at the time the government announced the class action. They've sent me new policies, and in the new policies, they wouldn't accept the clinical psychologist's report. He's a PhD with over 25 years' experience, but they wanted me to go to a GP who was insulted, saying that this person has all of that experience, and they're asking for a GP to fill out the paperwork. So there's a lot of concern here about the fact that she still has not received treatment, and yet she's seen a psychologist, 25 years' experience, and she has this diagnosis that's in the DSM. How can it be that she is not being recognized as having that condition and needing those treatments? Sorry, I didn't leave you a lot of time.
Given the limited time, I would just say the following is, we have updated the policies in accordance with the actual class action lawsuit, and I might just ask Trudy to talk about the changes that we made to the policies that reflect, I think, this situation.
Thanks, Mr. Harris. In regards to well, first off, I will say that situation is extremely unfortunate. And if the member that you're referring to is still having challenges, then we would be more than happy to, behind the scenes, reach out to her directly if she is interested in working with us. With regards to the class actions, we updated our policies in 2019, and so I'm not 100% certain when she had come forward initially, and there is no question that we made fairly significant advances in the policies after 2019. Prior to that, she certainly may have had some challenges coming forward. As I noted, we are now accepting applicant statement without any corroborating evidence, given the nature of these types of situations. I will also say that we do now also accept medical information from, as always, family physicians, but also nurse practitioners, registered psychologists, and registered licensed psychologists. And so depending on this individual's circumstance, we may well accept that documentation now. And again, I would be more than happy to connect with this client and ensure that they are receiving the services and benefits that they're entitled to.
Thank you, Mrs. Morgenthau. And now, je voudrais au nom des membres.
In the name of the members of the committee and on my behalf as well, I would like to thank all of the witnesses for sharing all the experiences of these women veterans. We had Mr. Phil Marcus from Canadian Forces Morale and Welfare Services today. We had Manulife Financial and Godfrey Jerry, Assistant Vice President, Life and Disability. Ms. Maureen McGrath, Manager of Canadian Armed Forces Long-Term Disability Vocational Rehabilitation Program. And from the Department of Veterans Affairs, we had Mr. Stephen Harris, Assistant Deputy Minister, Service Delivery Branch, as well as Trudy McKinnon, Acting Director General, Centralized Operations Division, and Ms. Melanie McDonald, Team Lead, Disability Benefits Entitlement Eligibility Guidelines Modernization Initiative. Thank you. I would like to ask members
Committee to adopt the budget of $13,000 for the study on the backlog of the Veterans Review and Appeal Board. You know
Yes.
that we have some expenses, and you have received that. Is it okay for members? Great, thanks. And j'aimerais aussi.
Before adjourning, I'd also like to thank our team of interpreters, our technicians, the clerks and the analysts and assistants that were with us. Do members agree that we shall adjourn? Then the session is adjourned.